always remember my mum saying it's better to get a B in catering than it would be to get a D in science. So with that in mind, I went and took catering as an option for GCSE, and then followed that through to college really. And it wasn't either of those things that made me fall in love with it. I started washing pots when I was 14 years old, and I think from that moment I fell in love with the adrenaline and the rush of a kitchen a long time before I fell in love with the food. So it's just really interesting that that's how it unfolded. And I think just as the years went on really, started competing in competitions, just found out that it was something that I enjoyed doing, something I was happy to give up everything for. So yeah, just the more I did of it, the more I loved of it. So yeah, it started super young for me, but I wouldn't change it for the world.
Who supported you, and how did they support you?
Yeah, I'm super fortunate, I think, to have such a supportive family. I have divorced parents, but that's actually not a negative for me. I have a stepdad and a stepmom who are equally as supportive as my blood parents. So I have my mum and my dad, my stepmom, my stepdad, and all of those four gave up pretty much, well, not everything, but gave up an awful lot for me to follow my dream. I remember them all giving up their mornings and their evenings to drop me to work and pick me up from work, take me to competitions. My mum drove me up to London for a competition once, and my dad would always pick me up at 1 o'clock in the morning after my kitchen shifts. So those four people there really sort of like early days helped sculpt that support system that I rely so heavily on now. And obviously more recently I have my wife Leah, who is that rock that I need at home, someone who I can just speak to and sort of unload my thoughts onto, and quite frankly, she's really good at that.
And so, she understands the business.
She does. Leah is, we're super excited. Leah's joining us next week, actually. It's so early, or so soon, shall we say. Only 1 week left to go, and Leah will be joining us at the gate. So, all good things ahead.
Okay. What sort of places were you working in your early days? You said that you were being picked up from your shifts. Where were you working?
Yeah, so I started my my restaurant venture. I started in Looe, a restaurant that was once called Cornerstone. It's now something different than that, but Cornerstone was where I first started washing dishes. At the time, that was also the sister company to Courtyard, where I also washed pots. I then started cooking in another restaurant in Looe, as not washing dishes, as my sole job was cooking, which was really enjoyable. And then I think where things sort of took a little bit more of a serious turn, I moved out at 17 and started working in a restaurant in Torquay. I did a short stint there, but it was there were some real disciplines to learn and maybe a higher quality of food to start producing. So that was definitely a turning point. And then I sort of fulfilled a dream of mine since the idea started of working in kitchens, which was working for Paul Ainsworth, and still someone I idolise now and probably will do for a long time. Not just his style of cooking, but the way he's developed a company is quite admirable. I worked for him for 3 years, and I would actually say that those 3 years shaped sort of everything that I rely on now, really.
So your mentor was Paul Ainsworth?
Yeah, I would definitely say.
It's not a bad thing to say, is it really?
It's not, no. I think I was so lucky that when I started working at the Mariners, I was there for the opening of Mariners, so day one, and what was great about that was that Paul was there a lot of the time. So Joe Rosier was the head chef at the time, but we also had Paul Ainsworth and John Moulton running the pass, because it was such a huge operations. I mean, this pub when we first opened was doing 500 covers a day. It was mental. But having Paul actually there, sort of giving the team morale, was something to aspire to. Definitely, he was a great guy and had this really particular way of boosting that morale and confidence within a kitchen. And it just that lives in me to this day.
Right. Now, something that you mentioned to me previously, you have a certain ethos that you'd like to try and that you have, and then you'd like to develop. Do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think for me, I follow a plant-based diet outside of work, and that's not for everyone. But with that in mind, even if you don't follow that specific dietary requirement, I think it's our responsibility to sort of pledge towards zero waste, and that's something that we have started to to factor in really early on at Charlie Walters at the Gate, it's not something that we shout a huge amount of like now, but it's something that we actively try to accomplish day in, day out in work. Any food waste that is food waste, we compost in the view that maybe we can start growing on site in the next couple of years. That would be something that would be really interesting, something unique, and it would just be nice to be able to source everything, or at least the majority of our produce on site. I think that's a really cool concept and something that maybe we should all strive towards a little bit more. And also, I always wanted with a restaurant to give something away. I always like when you go to a restaurant, you get something for free. I mean, who doesn't love getting something for free? So we do, and they've become a staple already in the first 8 weeks. We give a complimentary potato cracker out to every guest that walks through the door. They're great because they're gluten-free, dairy-free, plant-based. They're welcoming to every dietary requirement. And, we have a lot of potato waste in the kitchen, and I feel like, potato waste is probably something that a lot of kitchens have because it's not an expensive ingredient. But we take all of that surplus potato, we cook it in a flavoursome liquid, we reduce that liquid down, and then we dehydrate it, and then we deep fry it, and you just get this almost like the world's best pombear. And it's really, really nice to be able to give something away whilst championing something that we want to pursue further.
I think everybody in Looe, particularly, and further afield, followed your success on BBC's MasterChef. You did really quite well. You can tell me all about that. But how did that come about?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. And yes, the support was phenomenal. I think actually being from Cornwall made the support larger. I think it's one thing to have support from maybe a city, not to mention any, but just in general, I feel like maybe you can get lost in the crowd. Whereas as part of Cornwall and especially, Looe especially, there's that real sense of community that, it's just everyone was behind me, and that support was fantastic. And I couldn't be more thankful for that. The way that it came around was pretty much on the whim, if I'm honest with you. I remember sort of finishing a service at Sardine. It was a good service, and I came home and I just applied. It was 2:00 in the morning when I submitted the application. I went through the pain of going, like, it's not just a email like, I'd love to be on it, thank you. It was a sort of a document that we had to fill out.
Wow.
I filled it out from about midnight till 1. It took me a good solid hour to fill out the application. And it sort of said, you can come off the application and just log back in and pick up where you started. And it was 1:00 in the morning. I was tired, had work the next day. So I was like, right, I'll log out. I'll finish it tomorrow. I logged out and just, when you just get this inkling, I was like, I'll log back in just to double check. Logged back in, whole thing was gone. And I was like, do you know what, if I don't do this right now, I'll never do it. So I stayed up to 2:00 in the morning, refilled it all out, which was an absolute nightmare, but really, really glad that I did it. And then, started the interview process a couple of weeks later, really.
Okay. And what do you think got you through to actually be accepted? Because, they must have lots of people who want to be. What is it about Charlie Walters that made the BBC want to bring you in? Yeah,
that's a really interesting question, I think. I remember they called me and it was a bit of bittersweet news. They were like, you're a reserve. And I didn't really know how to take that. That's not something that I'd processed. I always envisioned the conversation being like, unfortunately, you didn't get through. Or, great, you're on. Not maybe. It's not something that had ever, it's not something I'd ever sort of prep myself for. That was a difficult week where I was stuck in limbo, whether I was doing it or not. Because I was a reserve, they came to the restaurant to film the backstory anyway, just in case I got in. What the deciding factor was, I'm not actually sure. Like you said, they have hundreds of applications every year. Being a reserve was, an interesting feeling, but it only lasted a week. They called me up a week later and was like, someone's dropped out, you're in. And
wow.
That was... Do you know what I mean? Imagine had that not happened. That's just a really interesting thing. I think I was the only one that I spoke to of the contestants, and obviously I didn't meet everyone. There's 32 of you, and I think actually the most you'd ever meet is 12 by the time you filter through.
Gone through the
But I think out of those 12, I was the only one that was a reserve, so that's really interesting. And then to sort of make it to the final was sort of like a satisfying moment, to say the least.
Brilliant. Now, one of the things I did ask you about this, were you given free rein to create the dishes of your choice?
Yeah, and I think that's probably the biggest thing from MasterChef that I take away. The whole thing was a huge learning curve for me. And when you work at a restaurant, even if you're a head chef, which I was fortunate enough to be, obviously the head chef of Sardine for 3 years, at the end of the day, it's not your restaurant, so you still have somebody telling you what to do, or at least you still have a criteria to meet, and whether that be the clientele that the restaurant's developed, or whether that's a price point you have to hit, or something, that there are restrictions to what you can and can't cook. And I think that was the number one thing in MasterChef for me is that I could go and actually cook my food. Now, the first half of the series, I don't actually think I did that, because subconsciously you're like, this is going to get broadcast to the nation, you know, you overthink it, of course you do. It's the first time you've been on TV for all of us. It's unlikely that you've been on TV before. So yeah, that was a really interesting point. And then as soon as I sort of like settled into it and relaxed and was like, this is my time to cook my food, actually the feedback became much better. I felt a lot more comfortable. The whole process became a lot less stressful. So yeah, it was great to be able to cook my own food and actually think that, you know, that year moulded what is now Charlie What Was at the Gate, if I'm honest with you.
When I spoke to you earlier, you mentioned almost like a topic for the dishes. Do you want to go back through what you told me earlier? Yeah,
so like some rounds you have, you can cook whatever you want. There's sort of like no criteria. Just turn up, cook something you want to cook. Now that's all fun and games. I enjoyed them for one reason or another. Other rounds, you turn up, you have no idea what you're going to cook until you get in the kitchen. So for instance, one that springs to mind is, we had a brief, you walk in, they tell you have to cook something to do with nuts, off you go. You have like 10 minutes to figure out what you're going to cook. Is that 10 minutes flies by, I can tell you that. And then other ones you have time to plan, you know, so obviously I have a sentimental value to this dish. It was probably my highest, I say scoring, nothing scored, but my highest perceived feedback, I suppose, of my time on MasterChef was the turbot dish I did as my last meal on earth, with the Camel Valley and clotted cream sauce, the caviar, the potato, the honey pickled fennel. It's a dish that I'll probably take with me forever, and it is something that we have on at the restaurant. And I just don't think I'll ever be able to take that one off. So yeah, there was different criteria to meet, and they sort of gave their different challenges. But I think for me, that was my favourite.
Now, as you said, you did really well. And so becoming a finalist on a national, international programme, it's loved all over the world, I'm sure. That must have meant something to you personally and professionally. There's got to be some advantages come out of it. What has been the kickback from that?
Yeah, I think for me, was opening a restaurant has been such a clear dream of mine since I was probably, I don't know, 15, 16. So my vision of how I want my dream restaurant to be is clear. I've spent a long time thinking about it. Whether MasterChef actually helped me open the restaurant is unknown, because it was always a matter of when, not if, for me, of opening my restaurant. But what I would say it's helped with is just that sort of familiarity in the local community, and now that the doors are open, I think I reap the benefits of being recognised. I never envisioned calling the restaurant my name, but there is something to be said for it, especially at these early days when, you know, let's be honest, it's no secret that hospitality is a difficult industry, especially now. So to be able to piggyback off the Gates reputation as a hotel that's been open for 6 years, and then piggyback off my reputation from last year, and all bring that together as one, I'm just glad of the decisions we made. I'm glad we picked the venue we did. I viewed a lot of restaurants outside of the Looe area. I think I viewed 8 restaurants in total, 7 of them not being anywhere near Looe. And yeah, I'm just really glad we made the decision to stay where the support was for me and where maybe that sentimental value is. And I think we've been accepted into the community quite well.
Now, your current menu, you do small plates, if I am right. The lovely Mrs. A has been to see you with friends on the ladies.
A couple of times.
A couple of times. She never takes me. But there are changes afoot that she probably would be able to drag me to them, and she probably might drag me to. So do you want to tell me about your October changes?
Yeah, definitely. I think when we first, the way I first envisioned my restaurant wasn't to open with small plates, but again, things just don't always go as planned. We started off with a really small kitchen team, so yes, we follow the small plates concept at the moment, and that is for a couple of reasons. One of them, from a logistics point of view in a kitchen, we have a small team, and having a small plate restaurant in one way or another helps with the management side of things in the kitchen and how many sections the kitchen gets split up into. Usually you have meat and sauce, larder, pastry and garnish. Now, at the moment, there's two of us. I do meat and sauce. My other chef, Dylan, does larder, and we share pastry, and we don't have a garnish section because of the small plates. Now, in October, at the end of October, our team expands, not from the kitchen, but as I said, my wife joins us. That's going to split my workload in half because I don't have to think about front of house, well, not as much anyway. And we're going to sort of dive deep into developing that extra section in the kitchen, and it's something I'm really looking forward to. The food has been, taken well by the guests that we've had so far, but I do think that there is that sort of unnecessary confusion of small plates, especially if you want to eat more traditional.
Yep.
If you want to form an a la carte style menu and you want to enjoy starters and mains, it's quite difficult to structure that or understand without the help of staff how you would do that on a small plate menu.
Yep.
Whereas if you wanted to eat small plates from a traditional a la carte menu, it's a little bit easier because you just pick all the starters.
Yeah.
So I just think for me, it works one way but not the other, and it's just something I've learned that every day's a school day at the restaurant. I'm telling you that, I learn something every day, whether that's the way we word something to a customer, maybe it's a little bit of feedback, maybe it's the space that's available on the table, or the way people approach a certain type of food. You think, well, actually that looks a bit cack-handed, how can we make that experience just a little bit better for the guests? The bread, for instance, I watched someone cut the bread open the other day, and there was nothing wrong with it, but it didn't look comfortable. So I think just learning that was, we need to let them know that we've scored the underside of the bread so that it's easy to break up. I just think there's so much learning to be done every single day, and I think the feedback that we've had is maybe a few larger plates would be nice, especially for the generation that like to eat that way, and I really look forward to seeing how it takes off at the end of October.
And that would probably be my generation.
I'll see you then.
Yeah, that's fine. And of course, you're building a team.
Yes.
You've got your good, lovely lady coming in. How do you see that progressing, and how do you see yourself progressing beyond where you are now?
Yeah, I think we've had some really great feedback. I remain humble on that though, just because I feel like there's still so many hurdles to come. But as a whole, I think we just take the ethos as we just want to offer raw hospitality. We're not trying to be something we're not. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We want you to come to the restaurant with a positive mindset, welcome you with a smile, and then you leave with a smile. And I just don't think hospitality needs to be anything more than that. It's just good service, good food done well. And although I feel we're already doing that, I'm not one to settle. I feel like we can do a lot better. My dream of what the restaurant should be is not where it's at. There's just so much more to give, and I think that's from a food point of view. And Leah joining is going to change the shape of our restaurant, because I can focus a lot more on the food, which, let's be honest, is what people are coming for, is my food. And like, Leah's great at her job as well. She's got this ability to be able to just mould to every customer something that maybe we both share, and I really look forward to sort of her taking the role and responsibility of looking after our guests, and me behind closed doors slaving away in the kitchen and just creating this memorable experience. And I think that's for me what it is it's not how much food can we sell and how much money can we make at this stage. It's not about that. It's how can we be happy with what we've achieved and build the reputation that we want to build. It's the dream's bigger than me and Leah, and I just look forward to sort of elaborating on it, really.
I think you said about stuck behind the closed doors, and I also picked up on the fact that you said people are coming for my food. I think having your name on the restaurant is excellent. There are other people that do that as well, you know.
Yeah, of course.
We all know who we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's great to aspire. But I think that's good because people are coming to see you, and you are Charlie Walters at the gate. And I think you said to me earlier, you want to make sure that people know that it's your restaurant at the Gate Hotel. And I think that doing what you've done is really good. But also, I do know that you are very good front of house. I get a lot of feedback come to me that you're very good front of house, and the fact that you come out and talk to people is very nice, and I'm sure listeners will say the exact same. Certainly Mrs. A says that. So yeah, and of course I've been down to see you before as well. That's something I suppose a little bit of a balance for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that me and Leah have spent a lot of time, and my sort of support team, and by support team I mean my parents. And all right, yes, they're just my parents, so why am I calling them support team? I couldn't begin to put into words their opinions on the restaurant and how much that matters to me, because it's so unbiased, which is great. But it's something that we've spoken a lot about, and I've done a lot of front of house recently whilst we've been short staffed, or while we're just trying to manage how much we're spending. To be honest, let's not beat around the bush. Restaurants are expensive to run. I love front of house. I love seeing my guests. I love seeing the restaurant. It's going to be really tricky this week. I plan to not be out front so much this week, and sort of handing the baby, so to speak, back to somebody else is going to be a difficult thing to overcome. But it's going to be really important that we, even though I'm in the kitchen, and we don't have an answer for this yet, we think we do, but we need to test it, how I can still come out and speak to every single table and cook to the degree that and standard that we're going to set. So yeah, it's interesting. I think it's something really special for an experience point of view for the chef to be able to come out and speak to you afterwards, especially if they already know me, which is nice. There's just a lot of question marks around it, but I don't want to start hearing that people are now upset that they don't get to see me because I've gone back to what my job should be. So how we streamline that is yet to be decided. But I would imagine, I spoke about those potato crackers a little bit earlier on. If I could just deliver and welcome people into my restaurant with those potato crackers every time, that would just be a nice little touch for us. And then maybe factor in some way that I could say goodbye whilst still sort of running a section in the kitchen.
But the exit sign would go past the kitchen.
Please knock on kitchen door if you wish to say bye.
No, I think it'd be fine. Now, we've talked a lot about your restaurants. So those who haven't been and are would-be interested diners, where is it?
So it's between Looe and Polperro is the easiest way to describe it. As Fred kindly pointed out at the Looe Food Festival, it is next to a campsite. It's called The Gate, Polperro Road, Looe. And it's a little bit off the beaten track. We have signage on the road, which makes things a little bit easier. But yeah, it's really nice that you can leave the hustle and bustle of Looe, especially in the busier times that we've just been through, and sort of come to this tranquil hotel which is almost standalone with land surrounding it, and just come into our little 24 cover restaurant and be away from everything. It's really lovely. Like we've spoken about before, up until the end of October we're going to be offering those small plates menu still, which are equally as good from a standard point of view to these larger plates that we're going to produce, but we're just going to amend that concept a little bit and have our sort of ears peeled, I suppose, and look forward to receiving the feedback from those larger plates. It'll go one way or another and we'll learn from it. So
I'm sure it will do well. I'm guessing people who want to come along need to book.
Yeah, definitely.
How do they do that?
Yeah. So a couple ways to book. You can call the gate, and especially if it's for a Tuesday to Saturday, it's likely that myself will pick up the phone. Or you can book online, really straightforward. Like the most efficient way to see the online availability is through the booking system, which if you head to the Gate website, we've got a section under the Gate website under Eat, and then that will showcase everything about the restaurant and the booking system. I would definitely recommend booking for dinner as well as lunch. But if you were looking for sort of like a lunch on the whim and wanted to walk in and brave your chances on a lunchtime, by all means do. The worst thing that's going to happen is we're going to turn you away and book you in for next week. So that's not that bad.
Okay, well, I'm going to say thank you ever so much, Charlie Walters, for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope people are enjoying this, listen to it. I will get another copy of this put out onto social media as well, and make sure everybody does see it. And good luck.
Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Okay.